everybody, it's Deb from Move It Studio and the Pilates Studio, and we are working on doing just some little mini workouts, fundamental workouts for you while we're away from the studio. So my last video was about breath, and I'm going to work from the top of the body down, and so today's topic is going to be about the head. And it is one of the most common complaints we get as Pilates teachers and movement teachers is that holding up, this is going to be my model for the head today, holding up the weight of your 12-pound head is really challenging at times. And what I have found for myself is that learning the skills of how to manage that from the muscles of my neck was a big game changer. And so I'm going to try to share some of those things with you today, and then you can practice that on your own at home. If you ever have any questions, reach out through the website, through the studio, and those questions will get to me, or you can email me directly at my name, debnalig@gmail.com. So Joe Pilates was all about uniform development. And he probably would have just been so upset with our tech neck and forward head and all of that. But because what happens when the head goes forward is that we're taking the muscles of the neck out of uniform alignment. The front of the neck muscles get stretched and long and tight, and the back of the muscles get short and tight. So when we adjust that, we bring the head back onto the trunk. It sometimes feels like work. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. My teacher, Katie Bowman, calls this exercise head ramping. And she's a biomechanist, and she has two great books that I would recommend, one called Dynamic Aging and the other one called Move Your DNA. So if you're just looking for something to dive into while you're at home, I recommend either of those. So head ramping basically takes your forward head position and slides your head back on top of your spine and your structure. And there are ways that can go wrong, right? So I'm going to use this as my head, and I'm going to use this as my cervical spine. And so if your head ramps forward, so I'm going to move that to, this is going to be forward. My eyes are going to be right here. So if I move my head forward, right, the movement of bringing my head back is simply that. It's coming back. My eyes stay on the level, right? So in a real human head or neck, with all the screen time I have had in the last few days, I can demonstrate this really well, I think. So forward would be here, and head ramping back would be here. That is different than bringing my head back or dropping my chin, right? So it's a diagonal line. It's almost as if I pushed my chin back, straight back, not down, and I can feel that length in the back of my neck and short in the front. I refer to these as the neck abs in class often. Shout out to whatever teacher said that to me first. I don't know if I made it up, but it made sense to me. And they are the flexors of the front of your neck. And if they're used to being hanging out here and being stretched, that may feel like work right in here. What you don't want to feel is lifting your head up with your trunk while your head is in that forward position, because then that just creates a lot of misery in the side of the neck. So if what you're feeling when you're practicing this is muscles working in the front of your neck and a little bit of stretching going on in the back of the neck, you're probably fine. But with all of these, I'm going to say, if this is an area where you've had problems and you've been told different things from a doctor or a PT, obviously heed what what they've said and don't do anything that feels uncomfortable. All right, so that's the movement to head ramp and get your head on. Now, once it's on, how do we lay down flat and pick up all that weight? Well, if now I'm on the floor, my eyes are towards the ceiling, I start by doing this tiny little chin nod. You've probably heard that from one of your teachers at a time, like nod your chin towards your chest. And it really is where your skull just spins. If you had a little dowel right through your ears, there's about, there's a little degree of movement of spinning your skull on top of your cervical spine that flexes the front, stretches the back of the neck before you take your head forward. You don't take your head forward, you just move it, right? So I'm doing that with my model here. I'm spinning my head just slightly, and then I'm going to take that all the way up and into my upper ab curl. This isn't great because my cervical spine is very rigid, but just for the demo purposes. I haven't brought my head forward to come up. I've spun it, and then I've flexed the rest of my spine to come up to the tips of my shoulder blades. So now my eyes are looking forward, out, and towards my legs. They're not looking towards the ceiling. That's a really common cue I hear in fitness classes, and I think it was probably good for fixing this smush down thing that sometimes happened, but it's definitely not a great place for you to be holding your head in a crunch position, because it really accentuates a lot of times that forward head position. So now I'm going to go down onto my mat, and I'm going to talk you through how to practice that lifting up into gravity, because it's fine to practice that chin nod here, and I do want you to do that without gravity hauling on you. But once you get down onto the ground and you have to pick your head up, it's a whole different game. All right, so when you lay down onto your back, make sure that your head is again in that level position. So you're not going back and you're not smushing down. You're Goldilocks here, just right. And I'm going to use one hand behind the back of my head just to support it here. And you're doing that tiny little, if this is the dowel, you're spinning. That's all my head needs to move on my cervical spine. Then I'm picking up my shoulders, and I'm picking up my rib cage, and my eyes are forward. So I'm not in misery here. I'm feeling a stretch in the back of my neck, and I am feeling these muscles in the front of my neck working because I'm flexing the front of my spine. And the weight of me is not falling back into gravity, it's reaching into gravity, so that if I release my arms for the 100, or I pull my knees in to do double leg stretch, I'm not feeling like my head is falling off. What happens if we look at the ceiling, and I'll just demonstrate what I sometimes see people do, is that they lift their head up this way, which is that forward neck position. So already I'm feeling the sides of my neck. And then they flex at their trunk. And so you get up, and then you're like trying to do all your Pilates exercises kind of in this miserable place. And it really is just a little bit back, a little bit down, and then managing the weight that way. You could also take a towel or something behind your head and use that to help pick you up. But play around a little bit for yourself, and like changing positions and figuring out what is feels like the best position for your head. It'll really help you in the long run, and provide support, and also strengthen all of those muscles, because it's a heavy thing to haul around. And so it's good to know where it is, and it's good to know how to manage it with the strength of your neck muscles. Hope that's helpful. Any questions, reach out. Talk to you soon.